The last day of fourth grade should have been a happy one. A day of freedom, excitement, and plans for summer. But for me, it became a memory I wish I could forget. As we stood outside the school waiting for our parents, the air was heavy with anticipation. My teacher, Ms. Blue, stood nearby, watching over us as kids reunited with their families. I scanned the parking lot for Dennis's dad. We had planned a play date that day and I couldn't wait. But then someone called my name. "Tommy! Tommy!" The voice was cheerful but hollow. A man stepped forward, a stranger. "I'm Dennis's uncle," he said, smiling too wide. "Dennis's dad got held up, so I'm here to pick you up." I hesitated but told Ms. Blue. She waved us off without a second thought. That was her first mistake. The man led me toward his car, a dark red hatchback that looked like it hadn't been washed in years. Something about the way he moved, his jittery hands, the slight tremor in his voice put me on edge. "Where's Dennis?" I asked quietly. "Oh, he's already home," the man said, his voice too casual, too rehearsed. The ride was short but suffocating. He talked non-stop about Dennis, about his own childhood, but his words felt off, as though he were trying too hard to sound normal. My stomach churned as we pulled into the driveway of a dark house. No lights, curtains drawn tight. I asked again, "Where's Dennis?" "Downstairs," he muttered, barely meeting my eyes. He disappeared into another room, leaving me alone in the dim entryway. The air inside was heavy, stale. My instincts screamed at me. Something's wrong. My heart pounded as I scanned the room. Then I saw it, a wall-mounted phone. My hands shook as I lifted the receiver and dialed 911. Whispering as quietly as I could, I said, "I've been kidnapped. Please hurry." Just as I hung up, his footsteps echoed from the hall. "Tommy," he called, his voice sharp now. "Come downstairs. Dennis is waiting." I froze. When he found me still standing there, his expression shifted. The smile was gone. His eyes darkened as he grabbed my wrist. "Let's go," he snapped, dragging me toward the basement door. "I'll let you go if you behave." The basement was cold and empty, the walls bare. The only sound was the rain pounding against the house. He locked the door behind us and I was trapped. My heart thundered in my chest. Upstairs, I heard him pacing. Then a noise broke through the silence, banging at the front door. My breath hitched. Was it the police? Or someone else? The door burst open, and heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs. Flashlight beams sliced through the darkness. Relief washed over me as an officer pulled me to safety. The man was arrested on the spot. He wasn't Dennis's uncle. He wasn't anyone's uncle. He was a predator who had overheard our plans and seized his chance. If I hadn't called for help, I wonder what would have happened to me. I wonder what he would have done to me. I most certainly wouldn't be here today to tell this story.
Years later, during my junior year of high school, another last day would haunt me. My friends and I decided to explore an abandoned elementary school, a crumbling relic hidden at the edge of a forgotten neighborhood. A storm loomed overhead as we approached, the wind howling through broken windows. Eddie smashed a window with his bat, clearing the glass as rain poured in. One by one, we climbed inside. The air was thick with mildew, the smell of decay. Our flashlights illuminated long-forgotten classrooms, desks still arranged as if waiting for students who would never return. Every step we took echoed unnaturally, as though the building itself was alive. Then we heard it, a faint scraping sound just ahead. We froze. Lightning lit up the hallway, and for a split second, we saw it. A figure standing in the doorway at the far end, motionless, watching. "Run!" Eddie whispered, his voice trembling. We bolted down the hallway, our footsteps splashing in the rainwater that leaked through the ceiling. Turning a corner, we ducked into a kindergarten classroom, slamming the door behind us. Our breaths came in ragged gasps as we listened, straining to hear over the storm. The door creaked open. A figure stood there, silhouetted by the faint light from our flashlights. "We're leaving!" I shouted, my voice cracking with fear. Eddie handed me the bat and began prying open a window. One by one, we climbed out into the storm, rain soaking us to the bone. I was the last to leave. Just as I crawled through the window, I looked back. The figure was still there, standing in the shadows. We never spoke about what happened that night. The school was demolished later that year. Whatever or whoever was in that building remains a mystery.
In college, I learned that not all nightmares come from the dark. Some walk among us, hidden behind kind smiles and quiet words. Zach was a quiet guy in my chemistry class. Awkward, sure, but he seemed harmless. He offered to help me when I struggled with assignments, and over time we became friendly, not friends, just acquaintances. I thought nothing of it when he asked for my number to send me homework notes. On the last day of class, he stopped me as I was packing up my books. "Hey, do you want to go out sometime?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes unblinking. I froze. I wasn't interested, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings. "I'm going to Miami for 2 weeks," I lied, hoping to brush him off gently. "Maybe when I get back." He nodded, smiling awkwardly. "When will you be back?" The way he asked made my stomach twist, but I shrugged it off. It was just a harmless question, wasn't it? That night, while out with friends, my phone buzzed. A text from Zach. "When are you leaving for Miami?" I ignored it, laughing it off as my friends teased me. But the next morning, his messages became more unsettling. "You're just using me, aren't you? I helped you, and now you're ignoring me." Another buzz. "I don't like liars." A chill ran down my spine. I replied, trying to stay calm. "What's going on, Zach?" His response came almost instantly. "Nothing." "Forget it. Just don't lie to me again." That night, a storm rolled in, thunder shaking the windows as rain lashed against the glass. I was home alone, trying to focus on an assignment, when there was a knock at the door. My heart stopped. The knocking came again, louder this time. I crept to the peephole, my breath catching in my throat. Zach stood on my porch, drenched from the rain, his face pale and his eyes wild. I didn't open the door. "What do you want?" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. "Why didn't you answer my texts?" he called back, his voice eerily calm despite the storm. "I just want to talk." "Go away," I screamed. "My dad's here and he's calling the cops." It was a lie, but it worked. Zach's face twisted in anger, but he turned and disappeared into the rain. The next day, I filed a police report showing them his texts. They promised to look into it, but Zach was nowhere to be found. He had vanished. I never saw him again, but sometimes when the storm clouds gather, I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, waiting.
It happened when I was 14. During a summer I spent at my uncle's house on Blackthorn Lane. The house was old, with creaky wooden floors and a sprawling yard bordered by a dense forest. It was the kind of place where shadows lingered even in the daylight. One night, a storm knocked out the power. My uncle handed me a flashlight and told me to stay in my room while he went to check the generator. The rain battered the windows, and thunder rumbled like distant cannon fire. I tried to distract myself by reading, but the flickering beam of my flashlight made the shadows in the room seem alive. Then I heard it, a faint knock. Not at the front door, but somewhere inside the house. I froze, listening. The knock came again, louder this time, echoing down the dark hallway outside my room. "Uncle Henry?" I called out, my voice trembling. No response. Gripping the flashlight, I stepped into the hallway. The air was cold, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones. The knocking continued, rhythmic and deliberate, leading me toward the kitchen. My heart pounded as I rounded the corner, expecting to see my uncle. But the room was empty. The only sound was the rain hammering the roof. Then I saw it. On the fogged-up glass of the back door, a handprint. Fresh. Too fresh. I backed away, nearly tripping over a chair. My flashlight flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw a shadow move outside the window. The knocking stopped, replaced by the creak of a door upstairs. "Uncle Henry!" I yelled, panic rising in my chest. I ran to the stairs, shining my flashlight upward, but all I saw was darkness. The house felt impossibly quiet, except for my own ragged breathing. I climbed the stairs, each step groaning under my weight. The door to my uncle's room was slightly ajar, swaying gently as though caught in a breeze. I pushed it open, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The room was empty, but the window was wide open, rain soaking the carpet. On the bed was a set of muddy footprints. Then I heard it. Breathing. Slow, shallow, coming from the closet. My flashlight flickered again as I crept toward the door. My shaking hand reached for the handle, and as I pulled it open, the flashlight went out completely. The room plunged into darkness, and something lunged toward me. I screamed, stumbling backward, just as the lights flickered back on. The closet was empty. The footprints were gone. I ran downstairs, my legs trembling. My uncle burst through the back door, soaked from the rain. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. I tried to explain, but he shook his head. "You must have imagined it. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard." The next morning, we found something outside the house. A single muddy footprint, far too large to be my uncle's, leading into the woods. We never found out who or what it belonged to. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear the knocking.